friends of mine, family, I'll look at them and be like, bro, you can do so much more, or you better than this, and I'll get irritated at them. Or what's happening, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Just the Radio. Today's guest is someone that actually really intrigued me in terms of, what she would be sharing on Instagram, the types of content that she'd be sharing, and, what she's interested in. So, Sascha Robinson, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And, those things that did interest me, and you can, give a brief history on yourself and how you maybe were raised that has led you to, the way of thinking that you do now. But, a lot of it is, Jordan Peterson's methodologies. A lot of it is, this, because there's so much weakness in society, it's the complete opposite of that. It's strength. It's, and that being interested in Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, it's strength, it's resilience. And do you want to give a brief history of who you are? It doesn't have to be super long. And what brought about this way of thinking?
I don't know. I would say it was the way I was raised. I found that my parents were very communicative towards me when I was younger. So we spoke a lot. My dad used to ask me a lot of questions. I used to obviously respond. And I found that him talking to me just allowed me to think more and interact more and just question a lot of things. So I don't really I take everything with a pinch of salt. So, but also I would say that, for example, jiu-jitsu, right? Jiu-jitsu it's not, yes, it's physical, yes, it's fighting, but it's not about that. I feel as though jiu-jitsu has empowered me as a person, so I can stand up for what I say. Not that, every single discussion is going to lead to a fight, but it definitely empowers you and it makes you feel confident that in who you are, so.
That empowerment, is that, because you've had to endure things, so you're more confident in situations, or is it empowerment in terms of being able to defend yourself?
I would say, sure, the self-defense is there, but it's the discipline, like it's the traits it's the qualities that you learn that come with jiu-jitsu. It's the discipline, it's the perseverance, it's handling pressure, whether it's actual physical pressure or just being stuck in a scenario that's not that great. And I think that it simulates the environment that we were supposed to live in, depending on your beliefs, because it stimulates the brain. So we lived in a way when we evolved that the environment was harsh. So when you're doing hard things, you are pushing your cognition, and the brain doesn't like, uncomfort or discomfort, rather, that's the correct word. It likes to be comfortable, especially today. Like, we live in a society that's very comfortable. So I would say that it allows you to be comfortable being uncomfortable, that things are actually okay. Like when you're getting mauled at 6 a.m., the rest of your day isn't so bad.
Yeah. And I assume, that you're saying that a lot of it was the way you were raised. I assume your dad was obviously very encouraging with you now doing jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely. So the way it actually started was, I actually started doing Muay Thai, like those boxer sizes class, those ladies classes. Started out doing that when I was about 16. And largely because, so I was in a back brace from grade 8 until grade 10,
Scoliosis.
11. Yes, exactly. But we didn't know. I was actually horse riding at the time, fell off my horse, and I had this lower back pain. I was like, I've got to get this sorted. I was like, Dad, please, can we go for x-rays? Went for an x-ray, went to an orthopedic surgeon, and he checked out my back. He was like, look, I don't know what that pain is, but you've got scoliosis. So got it checked, and I had the choice between getting rods later on in my life, which I didn't want to do, or wearing a back brace throughout my growth spurt. So I chose the brace because it was less invasive, and it taught me a lot about people. I think it made me a bit bitter towards people at one stage, but you go through that.
Because it is the worst time of anyone's life to have to wear that, is because you're surrounded with people that are going to tune you for absolutely
High
anything.
school's the worst.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think teenagers are the worst. But yeah, I mean, I was excluded, but I also was included in different groups. And you gravitate towards the people that accept you, that are non-judgmental. I mean, my best friend from when I got my back brace, I wasn't even friends with her before then, but only after. We're close to this day, and we're inseparable. Well, I mean, we are because she lives in Austria, but we're inseparable. But then I took up Muay Thai because I read Ronda Rousey's book. You know, Ronda Rousey, pioneer for women's MMA. And her confidence, I was like, yeah, let's get that. So we tried and we enjoyed it. And then the jiu-jitsu aspect came a little later.
Do you have a split personality or who's we?
That's so funny because actually the people that know me, I always joke around and I'm like, oh, there's Stacy. There's Sasha and Stacy here.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. Oh, maybe. No.
Sasha's joking. Stacy's more serious.
Stacy comes out when I drink.
Okay.
No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, so then I took up jiu-jitsu because I had Richie Kwan and Boyd Allen telling me, yeah, no, you need to come do it, give it a go. And I was like, sweaty men. No thanks. And then eventually I did it and just, it was weird.
Yeah. But you don't just do it. You also, you fight and you compete. So do you want to explain, that process of trying it out initially and then deciding that you're going to actually, go against someone else?
What, competing?
Yeah.
So the first time I ever competed, jiu-jitsu at the time, especially like females in jiu-jitsu, we versed each other in the gym. There was like 5 of us. And only now, 6 years later, has it grown to the level that it has. Like now we have platforms like, for example, Submission Kings that is now actually advocating for jiu-jitsu. It's strictly jiu-jitsu. I mean, there's combat jiu-jitsu, etc., but it's there to showcase South African jiu-jitsu. So in the beginning, like I would verse my teammates.
Can I ask you to pull that mic just a bit closer? You can just pull the up.
Maybe I should sit this.
Like that's perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't sit like that.
Scoliosis, what can I say?
It actually goes that way. And so where was I? Competing. ADHD.
5v5. It was actually quite recent.
Oh yeah, so that was Submission Queens. So we were asked to do that. I was asked by Monique van Staden, Mouse, to join her team.
I can hear you a lot better now.
Can you?
I sorted it out.
Yeah, so I can hear myself a lot better. So I was asked by her to compete, join her team. And so throughout January to the beginning of Feb, we were training as a team together, and it was a lot. Like we would do positionals. So positionals when you like put in a specific position and like, it's a kind of worst case scenario. So you get positional and micro positional. So positionals, for example, you start on someone's back. And then the timer goes and you got 1 minute to get out and move from there. But we also just learned, we basically built on what we already knew. So we weren't going to go learn a whole new game. We just kind of fine-tuned some more things. And it was so nice to be with a group of ladies. It's as I said before, there's not a lot of women in the sport. So coming together and seeing how, you do against the other ladies within your team is so nice. And it's such a comforting environment because you're no longer versing each other, You're growing as a team to verse other people, which is quite cool. Yes, we did. Good. I mean, I didn't even get to compete. 2 of us actually never got to compete. It was Hannah, it was Nicole, and it was Monique who competed, and it was just amazing. We had such a strong team.
So how it works is one person will against the other person. If they beat them, the next person comes in, beat them, next person. Okay.
Yes. So it was the first person versus their first person. If our person submitted them, they would go out, and then that first person would roll the next person.
Okay.
But if there was a stalemate, they'd both be eliminated.
Yeah.
So that was more or less the case. But it's good.
And psychology, because I did mention, Jordan Peterson, and, do you think, before we go into, yourself studying psychology, obviously this question will touch on that, but, do you think you're more interested in what he has to say and, his views on things because you study psychology or because, you agree with him? Did your studying of psychology, make you understand it better, or is it just because you were completely, on his side in terms of what he was saying?
I think initially it was the beliefs. I definitely think I more or less agree with him, and I believe in what he says myself. I would say that psychology helps a lot in understanding what he's saying, but I really like how he breaks things down. I really like how he rationalizes things and puts them in a simplistic way, because we tend to overthink and we tend to look into things a lot deeper, and sometimes it's not as deep as we think it is. So I really enjoy the way he breaks things down and rationalizes his perspectives.
So what got you into psychology? Has it always been something that you wanted to do?
No, actually. I've had quite a whirlwind in terms of studying. I was at Tux at one stage studying a BCom, hated that. And then I was doing makeup and prosthetics, which I still do part-time, more Halloween, because I like the gruesome stuff. But I would say I was fascinated by psychology because, I didn't want to say this, but I read a lot of serial killer books and gangsters and crime and all of that. So it's not just, it's not just the serial killers, but it's understanding the mind.
But you enjoy abnormal psychology almost.
Yes, pathological stuff.
Okay.
Just because I think that comes from the perspective of I would never do it myself. I'm quite empathic, I cry when I see people on the side of the road. So just seeing how people do that shocks me, but then also their background.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Does it interest you maybe because you, a little bit of yourself resents the fact that you're so empathetic? So that you kind of want to study that to maybe better understand it, to maybe understand
counteract that.
Yeah.
Maybe. I haven't thought of it like that because I wouldn't say it's a weakness in that regard, because I don't think
empathy is a weakness at all.
No. But what I'm saying is like they're complete polar opposites. So people who often do that have they say that, for example, serial killers have a smaller amygdala, which is the part of your brain that is responsible for your emotions and your empathy for others, and your ability to recognize fear in others. And so they don't really care about that. They just do what they feel like they want to do. And actually, like, some of the time, they don't even know that they're doing it. They just black out. So, I mean, that's what I've read in the books and in the journals that I've come across. I think it fascinates me more from the perspective of I like puzzles. I mean, jiu-jitsu is basically chess, and it's a puzzle. You got to work your way out of things, and I do genuinely enjoy physical puzzles. So I think reading these books and trying to break down and reading these stories and trying to break down their life is more the fascination. Like, why would you do that? Because ironically, I take a less emotional approach, because you have to be, unemotional when you're reading stuff like that. So understanding it is probably the most interesting part about it for me, is just how did you get there? What were the aspects in your life that caused you to be like that? Because they are in everyone, from when you're born, how you treated when you're born versus, up until you're like 18 plus.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask that is because, if I look at let's just talk about the movie stars or actors in their particular role. Like, if I just look at Batman, right? Batman is my favorite hero because he is cold, he's distant, he's emotionless.
Have you watched the new one?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
I was actually going to mention that when you said you like riddles. I was going to say puzzles. The Riddler.
The Riddler's one.
He's a very cool
he's
guy
a psychopath.
Yeah, exactly.
He starts singing in jail. I was like, what?
So I mean, that's why, because I want, like, Harvey Specter from Suits.
Yes.
He's cold, but he's still kind and loving, but he's cold. He's, he can take
he's
his...
a bit not narcissistic.
Definitely. But this is, these are the people that I'm like, that's cool. I love Batman because no matter what anyone thinks about him, he sticks to his guns and he is the way he is. And I think that's why I asked you that question, is because I'm the opposite of that, I have too much emotion sometimes. I empathize too much with people. I, feel people's pain too much. And that's why I look at these characters or actors or whatever, I'm like, I really like that. That's why I like Batman. That's why I like this person that's a Lone Ranger in that, because of how opposite I actually am. And it's me liking that because I'm wishing, like, there's certain attributes of that person that I could take, into my life.
But you can do that.
You can.
So they talk a lot about, so when you're younger, they refer to a child's imagination. Like when you're younger, you're like, oh, you pretend that you're the president, or you pretend that you're a princess or a superhero. And we stopped doing that when we're older. I don't know why.
Except for Trump.
Except
he
for
kept
Trump.
that going.
And so they say that it's important to role play even when you're older. They actually call it the Batman effect, where you give yourself an alter ego, and it allows you to not be yourself. So say, for example, you pick a character like, as you say, Batman, or if you want to pick someone like Harlequin. What are the attributes of those people that you like, and then pretend to be that person. And then eventually, apparently, that's what you'll be. So the Batman effect is when you're role playing to pretend to be someone else, and then it allows you to just be more confident. That's one of the main effects that it has on people, is that it allows you to be more confident. And essentially, as you say, you just pick something that you like. You know, you say that you like those traits, so just try, like, give it a go. What's there to lose?
Yeah. And that's actually interesting, because it kind of ties into a question I want to ask you and discuss with you. Is I was actually listening to, you know, this motivational type video last night, and because I was having a bad day, so while I was working, I was just listening to something that something to motivate me and get me out of my rut. And it was very interesting. It was actually a compilation of a few things, but the one part where Jordan Peterson was talking about was, you know, the one part about you that's most you is completely out of your control, and that's like your passions, things that you are drawn to. And I mean, like, if I look at my love for, let's just talk about when it was bodybuilding, right? And I couldn't control that was my passion. I can't now go and, you know, will myself into loving chess. Like, it's not going to happen. Even on the dark side, you know, let's just say, for example, I really love sweets, seeing sweets there, you know, like, and some people love chocolates. You can't control what you love. Essentially, it is just what it is. But, you know, but also thoughts do become things, and actions, you know, and things that are on your mind and thoughts, it becomes actions. So maybe, you know, you can kind of rewire yourself slightly to become more confident, or to be more passionate towards other things.
Yeah, so I believe also, and it was a discussion I had with someone who is very intuitive. You know, like, if I'm having a bad time, he'll just come up to me and just ask, like, what's wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. He goes, I know you're not fine. And we were just discussing things like, so humans are energy. Like, we forget that. That's something that's I read in my multiple personality book, dissociative disorder, sorry. And when she's sitting, so they were tape recording her, right, for example, and they were trying to record her sessions. And while she was switching between her personalities, it was affecting the system. So when they went back to listen, it was just static, because it was such a high frequency. So humans are energy. And going back to the obsession.
Have there been other cases of that?
Of what?
Of, like,
dissociative disorder.
Yeah, but that is interfering with equipment or whatever.
Yes. So in the book, his supervisor, so every psychologist needs a supervisor or their own therapist, and he would go back and revert back to him. And this was back in the 80s, 90s, so it was still early. And I'm sure there are. I haven't read up on anything else now. Maybe I should go do that. But the cases are there. And going back to the obsession, we were talking about this guy. He essentially said to me, like, go towards what feels good. Like, as a human, if you enjoy bodybuilding, why are you going to go play chess? Go towards what excites you. You know, that's how you should live your life. And maybe it comes from a place of privilege, and because there's some people who just can't do that. You know, like, when I think about my father, for example, he just never had that opportunity. So now he's like, do what makes you excited. You know, what fuels your passion. So you always move to something that feels good. Even with people, you know, when you feel unwelcome, you know, when you feel that no one's listening, and you don't need to be part of those people. You don't need to feel included by those people. Yes, it sucks, but they're not your people at the end of the day. So you always go towards that feeling, and that's that energy.
Well, you mentioned there that, you know, a psychologist needs their own psychologist, and, you know, that's something that I've been, you know, not battling with, but coming to terms that I think every person needs to see a psychologist at some point in their life. You know, I think I've come to that point where I feel I can benefit so much, and you must not be too proud to go see a psychologist, or naive to think that you've got everything together, because, you know, you can see so much benefit from even just talking about it, even if there's no one replying, you know, just talking about your issues, talking about the problems, because sometimes you might rationalize them yourself, or obviously in a psychologist's case, they'll be able to help you rationalize it.
It helps you, I think not only just go there to help your trauma and your issues, but also just go to understand yourself, because there's like one of the first things that we learned was that psychology is never 100%. Like, for example, there's the DSM-5, like, there's a reason why we're on number 5. There's a reason why it advances. Like, things are always forever changing. The more the world evolves, the more psychology will change, because the effects on people will change.
Well, if you look at depression now on social media.
Oh my goodness. That's actually something I was discussing the other day. And the effects on your self-esteem and your confidence. And it's interesting, social media psychology. Haven't delved into that, but it's more the bite-sized information as well that you receive there, and everyone thinks that they're clever.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, even when I see my, Jordan Peterson snippets, like, it's great, but then you go watch the whole lecture or the whole podcast,
Yeah. So you were saying, how, what is my question?
You're asking the wrong person. Psychology. Yes.
And people needing at least one.
Just learning yourself, learning about yourself. I think that's the most important part. Anyone that says, no, I don't need psychology, they need psychology.
Yeah.
For sure.
As you said, it's not just, I was in a car crash and now I need help.
Now I have PTSD for the rest of my life,
In my context, I was just thinking, I want to understand, I want to go to someone to talk about, maybe just being more positive or being more happy, or understanding even my own limitations, or, just to almost level up. It's almost like, we all these little characters. We're the main players in our own story, and we need to do certain things to level up, be it exercise, be it diet, be it chiropractor, be it going to a psychologist to help you work through some things, because, there's no way. We all need to communicate, and, talking to your friend can only help so much. You need to go to someone that's obviously studied it and understands.
I think it's also they ask the right questions. Like, the most important part that I've noticed, because obviously throughout this process, I've been asking myself questions. Like, why do you feel this way? Like, the more, I keep saying like, it's bothering me. The more you understand yourself and the more you're aware of yourself, it won't necessarily go away. I think everyone thinks like automatically my problems are solved. That's not the case. But you're aware of when you're in a scenario that will cause that trigger, where it's coming from. And you're like, there it is. There are my mommy issues, and they pop up, they do. But at least now you can, like, that feeling will pop up. And instead of going, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, and you become irrational and erratic, you can actually say, okay, I understand that. This is why I'm feeling this way. Take it back a bit. It's okay.
Well, having insights in everything helps you, even if you have the flu and if you're told your exact symptoms, your chances of getting better are way superior, your odds.
Unless you're on WebMD, then you're dying in 3 days.
But if you go to a doctor and they say, okay, well, X, Y, and Z is wrong with you, obviously, I mean, medicine, psychology, all of it is also ever changing because of the environment's always changing. But, personally, I at least know that, like, I can almost will myself into getting better.
I'm the same. Not just denial.
100%, obviously, but it's like,
denial.
Okay, well, this is what's wrong. I'm taking this medicine. Body, you better get to work and sort this out.
I'm feeding you.
Yeah.
Get better now.
And that's essentially, understanding if you're in a situation, something's happening, you start to, regress, and you say, okay, well, why have I been put back? X, Y, and Z. Okay, cool. What have you been taught, or what have you been told to get through this? And then you can get through it.
Yeah.
So, that's actually, I want to ask you a question as well. My friend actually sent me this guy's podcast, and I was listening to it, and it was, because you mentioned energies, and obviously energy is also something that's slightly more come into play in terms of, the jargon and it being
spiritual
used. So in terms of not really manifestation, but he was saying, and he was talking about habits and, the correct, I can't think of the correct word right now, but it's basically, it's standards. So you've got standards in your life. If you will work 5 days a week, that's your standard. If you are happy to train 2 days a week, that's your standard. If you want to get anywhere further in life, you need to up your standards.
Absolutely.
And
for everything.
Yeah. And what he was saying in terms of, he said, if you up your standards in everything, you will see more benefit in your life and the universe will reward you. But for me, I wouldn't say the universe will reward you. Your hard work will reward you. It's not like if you go and work hard, if you change your habits and you raise your standards in everything that you're doing, and then the universe can be like, okay, cool, let's reward him with this.
I'll grant you that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the efforts that you put in, those incremental changes that you made in your life.
You get out what you put in.
Exactly. It's not like, I don't know, you worked hard in the gym. Now I'm going to reward you with a new business opportunity. It's you worked hard in the gym, so you're more positive. You worked hard in business, then you got that business opportunity. It's not because you, I don't know, improved your standards here.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you something for free here. It's all incremental that obviously just spreads over.
It's something that you're working towards.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because people also look at how they're living their life and they're like, this is fine. This is enough. But then nothing changes. And they say, I can't remember how the quote goes, that insanity is doing something again and again and again the same way.
The same result.
And expecting the same result.
It was Einstein that said that.
Yeah, that guy. And I believe that, yes, you know, increasing your standards. And you can also feel when you've digressed, you know, when you've deviated from your standards. And it can apply to everything, right? Obviously, like your diet or your routine. And like for me personally, recently, I've just felt like my routine's gone downhill. And I'm like, you got to get your act together. You got to wake up. So the past like week and a half, we finally gotten our act together. And you actually feel a lot better as a person.
We again.
It's an accountability thing. It's not that there's two of us, I swear. It's an accountability thing. No, I'm joking.
I wish I had not more of me, but maybe a different person in my mind that can give me a different perspective.
The Batman effect. Yeah. I told you got to.
So who's your other person? I'm gonna try to be Batman. Who are you? Who have you tried to personify?
I haven't thought about that. I won't lie. I have not thought about that.
Okay, well then let's think about those traits that you think you need more of. You know, that if you look, because I know I mentioned those things like with Harvey and Batman and being more.
You want to be a narcissist?
I don't want to be a narcissist.
Or
I definitely
a boy that's gone through all the trauma.
No, but I want to be able to be strong in. Under pressure.
You should do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to come.
You should give it a go. That's actually a good question. I haven't. So that's the thing. You got to sit down and ask these questions. I have asked myself questions here and there. Just being more, I wouldn't say open-minded, because I would say I'm relatively open-minded, but I'm open-minded, but I won't do, for example, the research. Like one thing that I'm learning about psychology is, especially in a South African context, in a multicultural context, you have to know a lot about, religion and other cultures. And we are so diverse. And it's like, it's going through, now I have to go through the effort of researching all of these, but it's like, where do I start? And then you just, procrastinate and just push it off. But it's something I want to do more of, is more research. What other qualities would I like in myself? I wouldn't.
So then maybe just less procrastinating.
Yeah, we've been trying to do that for a while. But that's a good question. I actually have to think of a character now that I would like to replicate, but now I have to think of a movie. But what were we discussing before that?
I don't know. My ADHD kicked in and the thought went out. Because if I had to ask you, you've got 3 seconds to give me an answer. What character from anything would you be?
Well, I said Harlequin, so now my head is like Harlequin.
Okay.
Just be a nutcase.
A nutcase.
Not care about other people's opinions.
You see, and that's also maybe
I don't want to care about people's opinions. I overthink too much. And then I'm like, don't show that side of you.
So what have you done in your life to try overthink less? Or to think correctly?
Journal. I've been writing. I've been journaling. So I read a quote that said, if you think too much, write. If you're thinking too little, read. So sometimes I'll be thinking a lot and I'll still read. And it's just like a lot of information. Yeah. But the thing is, I'll be reading, but I'll also be thinking at the same time. And then I'll have to go back. Yeah,
you're reading and then you're thinking and then you're like, oh, wait.
I'm not even thinking about the book. Yeah. It's terrible. But journaling has helped a lot, especially to understand, like, I think people think that, I'm sad. They'll feel emotion. They'll be like, I'm sad or I'm angry. But the primary emotion is, I'm disappointed or I'm frustrated. That's why I'm angry. And so it's helped a lot in understanding why I feel the way I do and asking the questions. And you don't necessarily need an answer. That's something I've been trying to preach to my brothers. Like, you can have these questions and sometimes you're not going to get an answer. Like, say something ends, like a relationship ends and you don't get that closure. It's like, okay, everyone wants closure. Everyone wants to close that chapter, tie the loose ends, but sometimes you don't get it. And maybe that's what you need, is that feeling that things aren't the same, that things aren't going the way you want it to be. That feeling is the closure. So journaling and writing my thoughts down and understanding why I feel the way I do, what questions I'm asking in the situation. And I'll ask those questions all the time.
So how do you go about journaling? Do you just say, like obviously have an open page, you be like, today in this situation I felt
Dear
X, Y,
diary.
and yeah.
No one
Dear
laughed at my
diary.
jokes.
He ticked yes that he does like me on the questionnaire that I sent him
But
in
he
biology.
hasn't messaged me. No, I would say I do it at the end of the day. And if something's been on my mind the whole day, then I'll write it down. And at first when I started, it was almost like I was writing a story. And then I was like, hold on. It's not about writing a whole story. Like, you're not here to use adjectives to describe some scenario that's not happening. You're going to write what you're feeling. You're going to write down, the questions that you have for yourself, the questions you have for your situation that you're in, whether you're feeling anxious, etc., or, anxious about a competition, or about lifestyle changes. Making those changes is quite intense, right? So just writing that down at the end of the day, the things that have been on my mind the most. And I've noticed that it's alleviated a lot of mental stress. It's kind of like with your iPhone, it's like the cloud. Like, it's still there, but it's just frees up some space.
And do you go back and look at it? And because my friend and I, we every morning send each other our goals for the day.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and
I like that.
And then I've been saving them in notes, and then I'll go back and look at them and be like, okay, well, 3 weeks ago, this was my goal. Was it achieved? Or, and do you do the same maybe with a journal, where you go back and be like, hey, actually, I've sorted out this issue that I was experiencing? Or
yeah, I mean, I'll go back and look, and sometimes I'll go back and be like,
idiot.
Exactly. Like, wow. I think in the moment you're quite emotional. I wouldn't say emotional, but I would say emotional. Like, obviously it's something that's affecting you. So usually there's a bit of irrationality. So even the next day when you read what you felt yesterday, you're like, oh, okay, well, let's try take a different approach today. If this had to pop up, we go back to habits, right? Even though those habits aren't really good for us. So we got to start fighting those old habits. And I'm not saying I've fought all my bad habits. I mean, I'm still working on them. I'm still working on myself. I think humans are forever developing and forever growing. I feel like you don't ever stop. And if you do, then something's wrong. Yeah. In the sense that, are you perfect now? So I think being cognizant of what you do on a day-to-day basis and cognizant of your thought processes. I think a lot of people, now I'm generalizing, but there is an element of negative self-talk, and people don't get in their heads because that's the ego talking. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, I would say that as soon as I'd go into a competition, I'd be like, I'm keen, I'm going. And then like ego or imposter syndrome would pop in and go, you're not as good as you think you are. And it's like, now I have to deal with that. But if you get into your head and say like, stop that. You've put in the work. You have to kind of not justify, but you have to back yourself. We let our thoughts spiral. So going back to the whole confidence thing and et cetera, holding yourself to what you've achieved, what you find valuable in your life, and holding yourself to those standards is quite helpful in your thinking. So when you go back to your journaling, I do that. I write down affirmations, and you sometimes get told that you're arrogant for saying things like, oh, I am confident, I am smart. And then people will be like, oh, well, you got a big head. And I'm like, no, actually that's what I am. So, and I'm not trying to be, I was about to use a terrible phrase there, I'm not trying to be arrogant about it. It's just, you got to hold yourself to a lot more than what people give you. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And that's actually a difficult thing to do is, well, for me, you hold yourself at a high standard and don't expect the same of other people. And I've experienced that many times where it's been difficult in my life, where friends of mine, family, I'll look at them and be like, bro, you can do so much more, or you better than this. And I'll get irritated at them. Or I would look at a friend.
I'm the same.
I would look at a friend in this job and I'll be like, bro, just aim for a little bit more. Or don't even aim for a better job, but just aim to be the best at your job. Yeah. Or aim to be the best at what you're doing. Like, don't just settle for average and be complacent. And
people settle.
But it's also, it's up to them to settle. It's up to me, high standards for myself, but don't take out frustration on them because they're not
Yes.
willing to, you know, make the sacrifices or the determination.
That's something I've had to learn as well. Something I've had to learn as well is, firstly, you can't expect you from people. Like, I've been in situations where, and maybe that's when you've got to find friends, not that they have to have the same perspective as you, but like sort of the same values. You know, you get along with people that are different from you but the same as you. You know, there's that balance, there's that equilibrium. And it's like, okay, you know, you've made a mistake, and then that person just bashes you, and it's like, whoa. But if it were reversed, I would have accepted you, and it would have been like, okay, well, you know, if the situation had to pop up in the future, you know, let's see if they'll change the behavior. Let's see if they'll change that habit. Maybe they really didn't mean what they did. And the expectations that you have on others, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. Like, if I were in that situation, I would want my friends to try push me to be better. You know, I have friends that are around me, but they deliver it gently, you know, because I have authority problems to a certain degree, and I am a softie at the same time, which is a bit of a weird balance to have. And like, my training partner's very much like that, Jundi. He does push me to be better, not just on the mats but off the mats, and actually that whole community does that. But they deliver it nicely, you know, like, they're not going to bash you to the point where, because if you shout at someone, they're not going to listen to you. Something I've noticed with family is, like, as soon as I get shouted at, I just close off. I'm like, no, there's definitely a better way to talk to me. So it's nice to have those friends around you that can say, you know, you deserve more. How can we do that? You know, just give a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah, you don't want to surround yourself with yes men either. You know?
No.
Like, I think that's the worst thing you can do for yourself, because then you're either going to regress or you're just going to stay the same.
But you don't want to stay stagnant. It's actually something that, was I reading it or did I learn it? Yes. That's how you develop. You know, that there's that saying that says, if you're the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room. You don't want to be the smartest man in the room, because then you're just going to stay there. That's cool. It's all well and good, but you're never going to learn. You're never going to grow. But you want to be in an environment where you can grow at the end of the day.
I think growth is scary sometimes for people, and I think that's also why they will limit themselves, is because, you know, putting yourself out there and being willing to look like a fool, or being willing to look, I don't know, stupid or dumb or whatever in any situation, it does take, you know, you need to have the heart for it, and because you need to be able to take the backlash of maybe not knowing something in a situation. But that's what the most successful people in anything, the reason they're successful, because they're willing to be the idiot in the situation. They're willing to be the fool to then become the master. And I found that a lot of that in my life is I've been too proud almost to put myself in a position where I'll look like an idiot. But you have to. If you want to progress, you have to put yourself in a situation where you look like an idiot, or you look like a fool, or you look like someone that doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, when I started boxing, I still look like an idiot even after starting boxing. But I mean, when I started boxing, I was happy to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I was happy to look like a fool.
Yeah.
And if people looked at me like, JC sucks at boxing, I'd be like, well, big whoop, bro. I'm willing to go and do it, you're not. Or,
yeah. But it's not even about that. Like, it's I feel like in that scenario, you can either look at it and say like, oh, I'm really bad at this and I know nothing. And maybe that's a person who's a perfectionist to a certain degree. But also, it's also like, well, I know nothing. So you can tune me as much as you want, because I know. I know absolutely nothing, you know. I remember the one time, so I did a white collar boxing, much like you, like back when I was 16. And it was the first time I've ever done something like that.
Was that before you got into Muay Thai?
Before I got into Jiu-jitsu.
Oh, so you'd already been doing
Yeah,
Muay Thai.
I was doing Muay Thai for like 3 months, and then I was told, like, do you want to do this? I was like, no. And they were like, we'll give you a shirt with your name on it. And I was like, okay, I'm in. You know, got the shirt, did that.
Still got it?
Yes, have to. I have to have that. Goodness gracious. But it taught me a lot about myself. And I don't like getting punched in the face. I've had this discussion with a few people recently, and no, not my thing.
And that ties back into, you know, your passions, what you align yourself with, because I'm passionate about putting myself in situations that are difficult.
Yes.
But I wasn't passionate about getting punched, you know, and I was especially, but the weirdest thing is I would prefer to be punched than to punch someone else. for me, the most difficult thing about boxing was being aggressive towards someone else.
Yes, I found the same thing.
And it's difficult. And, there's so many things in life that I can, submerge myself in that's difficult that isn't boxing. So I realized after that fight, I was like, well, I've done it. I don't have to try to do boxing anymore. Like, it's fun. Maybe go do it every now and then, spar with someone every now and then. That's cool. But it's not, you didn't really enjoy having to put yourself against someone else. But then you can also look at it like, well, because I didn't enjoy it, maybe I should do it more.
Yeah.
But there's also that ability to do things that I hate, to force myself to grow. That you see, that's what the fine line is. It's a bit of I can go and make myself run 100 kilometers. I prefer because that's one of my goals now.
Oh, okay.
Is to go and run an ultra marathon. So it's
that makes sense.
So
have you read Goggins' book?
No.
You should read Goggins' book. It'll inspire you to run everything.
Yeah, that guy is a machine.
Oh, he's ridiculous. That book's really good.
Yeah. How much of it do you think, and this is just a thought that came to me right now, how much of this do you think like these kind of guys are fake? Like, I'm not saying David Goggins, that kind of situation is fake, but how much of this, self-help, Instagram personalities, that kind of stuff is maybe a little bit fabricated? Because I wouldn't put
I've been questioning that as well.
Because, there's so much that is fake in this entire world. What's to say that this guy that's super motivational also isn't fake and doing it for his own gain?
That's why you got to take it with a pinch of salt. And I think people also gravitate towards what they like to hear. Because obviously there are people
confirmation bias.
Exactly. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy. So you listen to what you like and you're like, oh, I agree with you. You see it. It's like, well, no, you haven't listened to anyone else. And I would say that I'm like that. I'm not saying that I only listen to Jordan Peterson.
But all humans are like that.
Of course. Of course. Like, you don't want to be challenged. No one wants to be challenged. We see that on a day-to-day basis.
But I would say Jordan Peterson definitely challenges you because everything
I don't agree with him fully in some things, yeah.
So what don't you agree with him in terms of?
I can't think of something exactly, but I remember listening. I think he was on the podcast with Joe Rogan, one of his the most recent one. And I was sitting there making breakfast, as you do. And he said something and I was like, no, I disagree. You're wrong. But it's probably not. But that's his opinion.
It's not like you take everything of his as like the word of God type of thing.
I listen. I think it's important to listen. I don't think it's a good thing to just accept what you've told and fed. And that's something going back is what my dad always spoke to me about and questioned. Like if I said something like I believe this or I want to do this, and he'd be like, okay, well, why? Why do you
have to back it up?
And he would always ask me that question. I used to sit there and it's quite nice, and he still does it to this day. My dad, he studied psychology, as an elective. So we sit and we go back and forth, and it's quite nice, and we pick each other's brains, which is quite cool. But he's always told me to challenge what I'm reading and challenge what's being fed to me, essentially. Which people should do.
Yeah, definitely. I think, in terms of Jordan Peterson, the one thing I don't like is I think you can tell he's also narcissistic though. Because in a conversation, he's the one that's talking the entire time. Like if you look at him and Joe Rogan, he's the one, he'll go
It's a little interruptive, yeah.
He'll go for a 10-minute rant on something that also is off topic, but I do enjoy listening to what he's talking about. But sometimes I would be like, if I was having conversations, I would be pretty frustrated because you'll talk about something, then he will go here, and then you'll go here, and then you go here.
I feel like I do that.
No, not today, at least.
Not today. Okay, good.
But, in terms of, there might be small things he says wrong, but I think what the main premise behind it is being your most virtuous self and, following, the actual values and, doing only good and working well and hard and, focusing on being better, essentially. There might be a few little things here and there that he says that, might lift a few eyebrows. But I think at the end of the day, most of it encompasses essentially what's good.
But I like how he challenges people, he'll challenge everyone's perspective. I think it'd be quite boring if we all thought the same.
Well, even as you said, you're not really challenged by what you listen to. But even Jordan Peterson, even though he kind of fulfills your bias, there's still so many questions within
absolutely.
that.
Always. And he does, and he'll say things that I really don't agree with. But it's important to listen to that. It's important to listen to other perspectives, and not just drown them out.
Yeah.
I think that's happening a lot these days. no one really gets a chance to speak about what they believe in, because then, you know, they get offended.
Yeah.
People
Well,
get
now
offended.
that Elon Musk has bought Twitter, maybe more people can go on saying what they want, what they believe in.
Yeah, hopefully.
I still probably won't go on back on Twitter.
No, I never even had Twitter.
Did you not?
I would get it though, now that Elon Musk. No, I'm kidding.
I used to have Twitter, and then I think it was this morning or yesterday when I heard the news, I just re-downloaded it again and logged in. But I still have 0 followers. But I've got the app now on my phone, whereas previously for the last like 8 years I never.
Yeah, well.
But that's not going to change the app.
No.
All that's going to happen is less censorship. So I guess essentially,
Well, that's a good thing.
it's a good thing. But the app still, the functionality of the app might be the same.
Oh no, it will be.
Yeah,
Just like things
like
won't be
it's not going to
restricted.
be like Instagram where you can see. You know, the visual aspect of it. It's still going to be arguing. It's just going to be more
Still gonna
racial
be
slurs
arguing.
thrown around because it's allowed.
Yeah.
I think that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think the whole purpose was to unban Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and that was that.
See, I think, I mean, in terms of like Instagram, if only he could get his hands on Instagram and Facebook, maybe not even Elon, but someone that, you know, allows the free speech that we need. Well, how do you feel on that?
What, free speech?
Free speech.
Oh, no, it
in
must
terms of
happen.
like on social media,
No, it must happen. Everyone must
to what extent?
have their opinion. Well, don't hurt people.
Yeah.
You
But
know, have your opinion.
hurtful is very objective, so that's the problem. And who
I guess that
controls
is the
that?
problem.
You know, someone who.
But if someone disagrees with you, don't ban them because they
Yes.
disagree with
Yeah.
you. You know, like if they're saying like hateful things and they're genuinely inciting violence, like sure.
Yeah.
But if they just disagree, there's nothing wrong with that. I'll never bash someone for that, but I will fight for their right to say what they want to say.
And this might put you in an awkward position, but like if someone says something racist,
What do you mean?
if someone tunes
No, you tune them. They must be
Okay.
banned.
banned,
Yeah, well, maybe not banned, but they must be tuned
yeah, they should be allowed. But I think
because like that's not right.
free speech is allowing everything, obviously within reason, because
Within reason, yeah.
you can't go and allow a 12-year-old girl to be reading some 30-year-old white man's tweets that's in his mom's basement, talking, you know,
Like the Riddler.
from Texas, you know, tuning all black people. Like obviously
Yeah.
you can't allow that.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's also the difficult thing, is at what point is it too much? Is it too little? Because if you take down a tweet from someone saying all white women complain at a restaurant because it's too
Karens.
racist. Yeah, exactly. There's too many Karens in the world. Let's take that person off Twitter.
Yeah.
Then at what point does this...
Well, that's the thing is where does
slippery
it...
slope.
Where's the line?
Yeah, where is the
Where
line?
is
But
the
that's
line?
up to Elon Musk to dictate now.
Yeah, well, for Twitter.
For that.
But
For Instagram, is definitely the line is too low. Like they take off too much.
oh yeah, everything.
Yeah.
I remember there was I think it was a grappler. He posted just a video of him grappling, and they decided to delete it because it was violent. I was like, of course it's violent.
But there's videos of people getting shot that stay
Oh, yeah.
on. Or there's videos of some Al-Qaeda terrorist cutting someone's head off, and that will
Yeah.
stay on. But
But
or
then-
videos of
yeah.
guys killing cats on YouTube.
Oh, there's so much
But
on
it
YouTube.
makes no
there's
sense.
Like, there's the I think that they're called the Sicario. They're a gang in Mexico. And there's videos of them just doing hits. It's like, oh, okay,
Maybe
you
it's-
allow that.
Maybe it's one way to go viral. Maybe if I want this podcast to go viral, I'd do some hits.
I don't think that's a good idea.
You won't be the first hit, don't worry.
Okay,
You,
thanks.
you can leave, it'll be the next guest.
Oh, great. That's very reassuring. But I do think that freedom of speech is important within reason, as you say. Like, just don't be a bad human.
Yeah.
Just have your opinion. Because usually, I think the problem is people want to say ugly things and just be ugly to other people and not actually stand up for what they believe in from a justified perspective. You know, if you disagree with someone, it should be valid. It shouldn't be, oh, well, I now disagree with you and I have no argument, so now I'm just going to bash your character and, you know, your skin color or your religion or your belief, or, you know, that should not be what you divert to. It should just be based on your opinion, the facts, you know, like what justifies your opinion? And those things don't justify an opinion, ever.
Well, actually, going back to, you know, at what point do you know, take off tweets or whatever, I was actually listening to a TED Talk with Elon where he was saying the tweets are going to be able to be editable. So let's say someone uses the N-word, for example. someone can, or not someone, but I believe it's someone in Twitter or the algorithm or something will take that word out and then it will say it was edited. So I think maybe in terms of that, if they see, okay, that's crossed the line, let's not completely just ban them off social media. Let's maybe give them a warning to fix it out, change the word, asterisk it or whatever. And then obviously if that person keeps on doing it, then maybe, give them a 3-week ban. I don't know how exactly it'll work, but that's what he's basically saying. It'll work like that.
Social media is getting quite complicated in that regard.
Yeah.
And going back, like you say, like, oh no, this 12-year-old shouldn't follow this 30-year-old man. Okay, well, the 12-year-old's on the phone. How are you going to stop them? That's the problem. I know someone whose daughter's like 9 and she's using TikTok, and her sister actually came to me. Her older sister was like, like weird people are messaging her. So I had to talk to her and just be like, and how do you deliver that? How do you deliver that message of don't talk to those people, they're weird. If you need help, let me know, kind of situation. Because you don't want to scare them and you don't want to come from a perspective that's where they're not going to talk to you. The last thing you want is for someone, especially like that's young, to not talk to you because they're afraid that it's wrong. So that becomes harder when you're affecting children.
Yeah.
And social media is doing that.
And especially now, because, let's say, okay, well, she's too young, let's not put her on TikTok. YouTube Kids is fine, but there's still so much that gets through on YouTube Kids, and there's still those YouTube Shorts or whatever, which is essentially like TikTok or Reels on Instagram. And, I've been sent by a young lady, not this Sasha, another Sasha's niece, and she is now 7. And like she's only allowed on the kids' YouTube, but then sometimes she sends me a link to go watch because on all these kids things at the end it's like send to your friend. Yeah. So she sends me all of these reel shorts or whatever, and then I watch them. I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is a bit hectic. I don't know if a 7-year-old should be watching this, but it's on YouTube Kids. It's I don't know, being vetted or I don't know what it has been, but it's up there. Kids can see it. If I was 7 and saw half the stuff, I would be pretty scared. I remember watching Scorpion King with The Rock. I mean, it was probably like, I don't know, maybe it was PG-13, I don't know. But definitely wasn't like hectic. And I remember watching it. I had nightmares for a long time. I was probably like still 19. It's like me with 19 Chucky. Years old when I watched it. Chucky.
Oh, petrified of Chucky.
When did you watch that? What age?
I think I was 10.
And do you think you kind of need to go through some of those experiences in life?
I don't know. I remember being at a sleepover with friends, and I don't know where I was. I was down the passage, and they turned off the passage light, and they were like, Chucky. And I was like, oh my gosh. Sprinted down the passage, as you do.
Yeah.
Terrifying. And then the garage. I think, yeah, that'll scar you. I was afraid of the dark for a while.